Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How's it going?
Alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful morning, and that
I know, I know. So
actually
this is
could.
my first time doing it outside. You'll hear some background noises, but bear with that.
Yeah, same here. There's construction going on all around us, which
I guess
is
that's the sound of life, huh? Cars moving, dogs barking, birds tweeting.
and we have
So
actually a lot of birds in our garden. So,
that's good. That's good. Those are the morning noises you want to hear,
yep.
right? Okay. So thank you so much for coming on, giving us and me an opportunity to interview you. Um, so everybody knows you, but I'll talk a little bit about you. So Marzia is a relationship counselor. She's a parent coach, an author, and a speaker. And just a few days ago, your new book came out, which I'm really excited to get my hands on and read through. I loved the one you did about the wind beneath your wings. I thought that was beautiful. The illustration and all the quotes and everything, they're so relatable. It was a very, very thoughtful book.
That was the quickest one, like from start to finish.
Sometimes the things that you do jaldi jaldi are the best, right? So tell us about yourself, Marzia. Tell us about who you are.
Okay, where do you want me to start? I
So
am, like they say, a spring chicken, so there is a lot of history.
yeah.
So I grew up in Pakistan, and my family is still very much there. I moved away actually when I went away to university. So in those days, it was not the done thing for especially girls, actually even boys, but especially girls to go so far from home. And so that's when I sort of left, but I didn't think I really left because I would like Pakistan was still home and I would still go back, every holiday and stuff like that. Then right after actually, so I fast tracked through university, and in my last year, I got engaged, like in the summer before. So, like, I got married almost the same month that I graduated, like a month or so later, and then moved back to the States on the other end of the planet.
Oh my
So,
God.
like someone who never really wanted, like I loved being home. Being the eldest, I'm really close to my parents, and it was never my, like I never thought I would be living so far away. But
Uh-huh.
the world is round. I couldn't have gone any further. So my husband at that point was living in Oregon, the US, and so yeah, I literally moved right across the planet.
So how did you find the change in your life, right? Like, I mean, I know it was hard for me. I've grown up in Pakistan as well, born, raised there. And then the same thing, I got married and I moved to Canada. For me, it was like we did travel, but I think that wasn't like, that's just a joke, right? So, and I used to think, oh, I'm going to be fine. But when I actually did the move, it was hard. So you tell me, how was the transition?
So, obviously, living in Pakistan, you have, there's always stuff going on. You're not really ever on your own, kind of, even if you, like, my room was right next to my parents. So, the idea of private space didn't really, like, even now when my kids go back and they look at my room, they say, really? You lived? So yes, and I never minded it. I actually, I didn't really, I still like the concept of like private space. Like kids can walk into my room anytime, and
Yeah,
even in my
yeah.
house, like it's fine. So the biggest change was, I think, because first of all, okay, so I liked my husband a lot. I had a,
Thank God for that.
I mean, in the sense that I had a crush on him when I was 14 years old.
Ooh.
Not that he even knew I existed. Okay, so it wasn't really like a raging romance or anything. But obviously, I didn't know him. I just thought he was cute, and that was about it. So here I am. I wake up in Oregon, small town Oregon, right? Where there was actually not even any other brown people.
Oh, wow.
So I woke up of panic, like, what have I done, right? Um, and so that was my first reaction, because obviously it was a huge change, right? In every sense of the word. So, lifestyle, surroundings, friends, people, like I did not know a soul. So if my husband did not call me from work, I wouldn't open my mouth. Like there was no one to talk to. So I think thankfully my mom sort of realized, and she said, "Listen, you got to go back to school. Like that was your intention. So do that, because I think without that, actually, I would have gone crazy." So then that's when I applied to law school and started there. And once you are settled and you have something to look forward to, you are productively occupied. Obviously, also you meet friends, right, when you are in that kind of environment. But yeah, the first few months were challenging. I remember once my brother calling me. He was in university on the East Coast at that time, and he called me, and I just burst into tears for no reason. There was nothing wrong. It was too much.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that I hung up the phone and he called me back in a few minutes, and he said, "I'm on this flight, pick me up from the airport." And now we're talking over 30 years ago, right? So it wasn't like resources, ease of travel, nothing was like it is now.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal. And, I still remember the gratitude I felt. And of course, when he landed in Salem, Oregon, and he came home and he said, "What's wrong? You seem fine." So I said, "I am actually fine."
Did I just fly across for this?
So yeah, so I think family obviously being so far away and no cell phones or anything, right?
Yeah.
So they were panicking more than I was. Like I was just having a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember. When I got married and I came, there was 10 months. I had to stay in Pakistan for my immigration. When I came here, it was November in Canada.
Oh dear.
It was cold. It was snowing. So the first snowfall I saw, I was like, "Oh my God, this is magical." And it was the same thing. Thank God for Ali's extended family, and they really took care of me a lot. But for the most part, I'd be home alone all day. And there were days when, I kid you not, I would be screaming and crying in that apartment and just questioning my decision, right? But alhamdulillah, and we're here. So
I
we
think
made
the
through.
difference though in those days, I think the fact that we weren't on constant contact with our families was actually a good thing. Because I know now if my kids were going through that same thing, I would be panicking a lot more and thinking, you know what, there's something really wrong. But there's nothing wrong. These are just adjustment things. And if you give it time,
Yeah.
it usually takes care of itself. But I think as
Hmm.
parents today, we are much more panicky about our children's, day-to-day happiness and mental
Yeah.
health.
Yeah. I think now as a mother, like Iman just went away for university she was 6 hours away. Like she was in Montreal, and I knew she was fine. She was living with Dada Dadi. But that anxiety that I had, is she home safe? Did she lock the door? And I think about it, what my mom would have gone through when I left. But it was like so helpless, right? Like you can't do anything. So you just kind of have to go with the flow. And at that time, even calling home was like, it was expensive, right? It wasn't like you could now with WhatsApp, you can sit on hours and you're cooking and cleaning and doing all that, right? But yeah, so you moved here, you went to school, and so what did you study at
So
that
I
time?
moved to the US, and so I went to law school because, again, those days, I was the first generation to
Mm-hmm.
go to university, and there wasn't any uh, role model, first of all. Who do you look to? Who do you? So you just did things like, as it happened, kind of thing. And so like academics in school has always come easy to me. Like it hasn't been a challenge. And although I was like a very naughty student, I would never do homework. I was always getting into but I still managed to do okay. So, the natural thing was, okay, what's the, hardest thing to study if you're not into medicine? Law. So that's what I ended up doing. And actually, I loved the study of law. I really, I loved it. And so, yeah, and then while I was in law school, we moved to Canada the first time. So this is my second time around here, but we moved to, again, across the continent. And so I started at U of, like I just transferred to U of T and finished law school here. But meanwhile, I also wanted to have kids. And I remember having a conversation with my dad that I really want children, but I'm in law school. So he said, listen, there's never going to be a perfect time. If you want to do it, go for it. And that's been my parents motto always, that you want to do something, just go for it, right? So yeah, so I actually planned my first child while I was in third year law school, which was
Wow, you're a brave woman.
But yeah,
So as a young child, what did you want to be? Like, when you're in elementary school, you always have this thing, oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to save lives. What was your thing?
I don't remember. So I don't remember. I certainly don't think I definitely did not want to be a relationship counselor. Like that was not
See?
till well, like not for a long time. Okay. I didn't want to be a teacher at all. In fact, it was, I mean, it's very embarrassing, but when, in days when we were in school, when people used to go into teaching, I would think, why would you want to do that, right? Being a thing, never ever thought. And I remember the first time I ever taught was in London in madrasa. And, so because I was studying Quranic Arabic at that time and just taking all sorts of classes, she's like my mom's age. So she was like my said, listen, you just have to teach. I said, I don't know anything. What am I going to teach? She said, I don't care. I'm going to lock you in the room with the children and you're not coming out till you teach, right? And I was really resistant, did not want to do it. But because I couldn't say no to her, I said, fine. And I started teaching. And after that, whoever I would, see, like who was a teacher, I was like, you guys are really mean because you don't share what an amazing thing it is to teach. Like if you would talk about how amazing it is, more people would want to do it, right? I was addicted. Like I was literally addicted. And yeah, so that's how I found myself in the madrasa teacher. But again, growing up, I think I was always very inclined towards spirituality. So because my dada had translated the Quran, M.H. Shakir, and I remember my dadi, writing, because it happened before I was very, and we were very young. And I remember, really feeling this sacredness, right? And being drawn to the book. And I started reading the translation like every year, at least once a year I would read it. And I remember like when my khala, who's only a couple of years older than me, she's born Christmas, like New Year's Eve, right? 31st. So I would go to Nani's house and we would spend and because Nani had like a little prayer room in her house, that used to be our tradition, that we would spend New Year's Eve praying in that room.
Wow.
And so, I mean, now when I think about that, that's what it was. And so I didn't really and then maybe you do a year or two of college and then you get married.
Mm-hmm.
That was the norm. And especially like if if you didn't need to work, like why would you? So and I remember actually when my teachers were writing the recommendations, they all said the same thing, which didn't make sense to me there, that given that she doesn't need to work, her drive for academics is remarkable. And I was like, because I always loved learning. I mean, that was one thing.
Yeah, I could see when I was doing some research on you and I went to on your About Me page, I was like, is this going to end? But
So
that's amazing. Like it's I think what's really amazing about your journey that I find is that you continue to learn and grow no matter what, right? It's and gain knowledge and you've ventured from like a few different um, fields, but eventually I feel like it seems like everything played a part in making who you are today, right? So which is amazing, which is amazing to know that you've studied the Quran, you've done law, you've become a social worker, you're a counselor, you're a therapist, all those things kind of you know give you so much background knowledge about things, right, that you can give that holistic advice to somebody who really really needs it, which I think is very very important, very important. Yeah, yeah. So then now you're here in Canada, you've had your kids, you've studied law, you've
yeah,
finished law.
yeah. So we actually, so after two kids were born, so one child was born when I was doing my final year law exams, actually, like 3 weeks before my exams. Then, then my husband had to move to New York, so he was like commuting. In between, I had another child while I was doing my bar admission exams. Then we moved to England, and we stayed there for like 10 years or so. So my children had their basic, upbringing and all in just outside London. Then came back here.
What brought you back?
I guess now already 20 years ago. So work, it's always been, the travel has always been work related. So my husband changed a few careers along the way, but and never thought I would come back. So when we moved from Canada, literally like, you know, burnt all our bridges, didn't renew anything. It was like, so when we came back, it was starting from scratch. I mean, the only difference was that I had a passport, so we weren't new immigrants in that sense, but it was brand new.
So you started from scratch, you built yourself, finding your friends again, finding a place in the community again, making a house a home. So you started from scratch again. So again, I guess that experience is like it's never too late to start again and to start fresh. And sometimes people get kind of really stuck in their space, but I feel like moving gives you a good new perspective on everything, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think and this is the challenge of today, right? Is that we overthink everything. We really do. I think when we were growing up, and especially now when I look at my parents, we didn't really overanalyze anything. We just did what needed to be done. And now, we have so much knowledge and so much information at our fingertips that it can actually be a disservice, right? Because we want to do it all perfectly. Like now, when I'm talking to young people, they find it hard to move. They don't want to find people who are living away, and they want their lives settled. And unfortunately, the nature of life is not settled, right?
Yeah,
As you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And I find that too. Like I come across people, and I feel like they're not. They want to play it very safe. I mean, it's you need a little bit of risk element in life to keep it interesting. But I think people are just so careful, how they're treading with life. They'd rather play on the safer side. And I think maybe because there's so much information out there, there's so much like connection, I think there's an over connection. Sometimes I find that you kind of then overthink, like you just said, right? Like people are just analyzing everything too much. And so when you think too much, then you just kind of stop in your tracks and you don't want to proceed, right?
Yeah, and
So
over connection is actually it's not such a good thing in the sense overconnect. Like I know in some households, for example, FaceTime is just on. You know, Skype is just on. Like
yeah,
they even when their children are somewhere else, or it's just on, and so it's a never-ending kind of conversation, right?
yeah.
And um, you know, these are some of the challenges of living in the 21st century, and it's not necessarily healthy.
I was like that. I had become like that. You know, at the time when WhatsApp video and everything was there, I had become that person. I wanted to stay connected because I think I really wanted to with my family because I had lived away for so long. But I realized that it kind of leaves me nothing to talk about sometimes, or it's just it's my brain that needs like a little bit of a break. And so I'm known notoriously in my family that I don't answer my phone or so I realized I had to do that. I had to do that because I needed to do that for myself. And so I mean I do check in with my parents almost every day, you know, how they're doing and everything. But yeah, I don't think I can be that person. I have days on the weekend, maybe I'll be on the phone, I'll be catching up with everybody in the family, but I don't think I can do that every day. Like it would
I
just
mean,
overwhelm
definitely
me.
keeping regular connection is extremely important, right? And phone calls actually are really good for that because phone calls have a beginning and end. With you know, with something like a Facebook video or with text messaging or WhatsApp, especially, there's conversation. You know, so it's just a long string of asynchronistic exchanges,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it
And
has.
and our favorite family line is "Aur kya ho raha hai? Aur kya ho raha hai?" So but anyways it is, you know, but I love it. I love being able to be so close to my parents living so far away. I love that, and my family, my siblings and everybody, extended family, I love that part about it. But of course there has to be a little bit of boundary. um how how has your like your education background or your knowledge or your work experience shaped you as a mother?
That's a very interesting question. So I actually started studying parenting when I became a parent. Because what I found was that I had no support system as such. I was, you know, in a place where I was far from family. And again, in those days, it wasn't like this. You couldn't just pick up the phone and, you know, check in with mom what to do, right? Also, things were so different. Like the way we were parented, it was a completely different landscape, right? So I started, I would attend like every parenting course that I could get hand or, you know, read every parenting book. And I felt it really helped me, like the knowledge, just the paradigms, you know, like understanding, uh, you know, because one of the things is that when you are parenting, as you know, you're so busy with the day to day that it's really hard to look at the big picture. And you know, it's like you're in the forest but you can't really see the forest, you're only looking at the tree in front of you, right? So I think reading and learning really did help me. And so, you know, that was a and when my kids were young, I was very clear, like, you know, okay, I did the crazy things about, you know, being in school while I was pregnant. But after I finished, like I qualified here, so I sat the bar. I, you know, was working in a very fancy Bay Street law firm, like very, very glamorous
Ooh.
and very soul destroying for me. You know, it was, I realized, like, you know, when I would see you know, women in their mid, late 30s, early 40s, waiting to have their first children till they made partner, you know, staying at work till 11, 12 in the night. Like there were times when I wouldn't come home till 2 a.m. because that's
Wow.
the nature of corporate law, right? And I realized that that's not the life I wanted for myself.
Yeah.
Right? And Allah really helped because we moved away. So had I stayed here, it's hard to turn your back on something like that. It really is. As an articling student, when they're throwing money at you, when you have an office overlooking Lake Ontario, it does go to your head. Like, there's no doubt about it, right? But, thank God that, at the same time we moved away. So when we arrived in London, again, it was starting from scratch, right? So I actually did the bar there. I got on the role of solicitors. But then I decided, I was just missing I really wanted to be home with the kids.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that because I stayed home after Iman. We had Iman, and then, mashallah, we had all our kids. I stayed home, and then I got a chance to go back into the workforce, and I am working corporate right now. But I feel like, do I really want to continue doing that? Is that something that I really want? And I think after a lot of soul searching, I came to the conclusion that I'm at that point in my life where I can either invest my time and money into my own career, or I can nurture my children into their future. But above everything, what makes me want to make a decision this way or that way is I want to own my own time. So at 40 plus, I feel like, I would like to have ownership of my time. I think that's the biggest thing. So I'm not bound to getting permission to take a vacation or take a day off or go see my parents. And I feel like those are such important things because, I that is important to me. So I know what you're saying. Like, sometimes you do kind of make the decision, and I have people who are like telling me, are you crazy? Like, you've always wanted to work corporate and you finally have the opportunity. Your kids are older and now you want to quit for what? And it's like, well, it's hard for me to explain, but I'm not a lazy person. I don't want to just stay home and do nothing. I will do something.
I don't think anyone would accuse you of that.
Huh?
I don't think anyone would accuse you of that.
Well, I've heard some, some people that, they be like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. I think I want to own my time, which is important because time is all we have, right? Right? With our children, with our parents. And I think it might sound a little bit narcissistic, but I want to spend time with me. I want to get to know me. I want to improve me, right? And when I'm running around like 50 different places, it's hard to better myself because I'm not focusing on myself. So I think I want to do a bit of everything. And so I can understand, like, to make that choice. I'm gonna do a few rapid round questions just to kind of, make it a little bit more interesting. What is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote?
Yeah.
That's a really hard one to answer, but what comes to mind is, when you're climbing the ladder of success, make sure it's leaning against the right wall.
Oh, wow.
Exactly what we've been talking about, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. If you could get a meeting with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Oh dear, I'm terrible at these.
You can pass if you want. Or you can maybe answer it at a later time.
The answer will come to me. I'll tell you when. Either when I'm in the shower or
or praying namaz. That's me.
Yes.
All the answers come at that time. Yes. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, there's so many. Right now, it is when people don't wear masks, to be very honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I find myself, and it's terrible to even admit this, but whenever I go out, I find myself glaring, and thank God I'm wearing sunglasses so they can't see, but I find myself glaring at people because I just think it's not about you, it's about keeping everyone safe. And I'm the first one, like, I'm not really a rule keeper, but in this situation, like, all our well-being depends on this. When people park with not consideration to other people, like, I think it's when, like, I've got this really deep sense of fairness and justice. So when people are not looking out for other people, that upsets me.
Yeah, yeah. Who are you most inspired by?
Hmm. So many people, you including.
Please.
So, no, really. So, what inspires me is again people, seeming to balance everything and wanting to do more. Like I cannot imagine having that number of kids and doing all the things that you've done, right? So I think women in particular, anyone with a story, of things that they've overcome. I think like women, middle-aged women, now I have to admit that, right? um, you know they do inspire me because we've all survived a lot and we're still smiling, we're still standing, and we're still going on.
Yeah, I think, thank you. To be honest, that's the first that I've inspired somebody and somebody like you. But women generally, like I read a this clip, or I read this excerpt by somebody who wrote that women are building cathedrals. And I'm going to send that to you. It is so interesting how that person has defined everything. And it's true, like every woman, has been through her journey to be where she is. And some of us succeed, some of us, it's hard to say, but fail or have a different experience.
So, how would you define success or failure?
How would I define success or failure? I think it's more personal, right? In my eyes. In
Mhm.
my eyes. So I feel like I cannot judge you for your successes and failures, right? I think a lot of times it's us women who judge ourselves, and I do that a lot to me. I feel like I failed in this, and this, but I have also succeeded in. So I think it's a benchmark that we create for ourselves, right? So in my own eyes, I feel like I could have done this better, or why I didn't do this. So we're harder on ourselves to keep pushing us to do better as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as a friend, as a member of the society, right? So um, I feel like we all have our struggles, inner struggles, more than the outer ones, because we're masters at putting that smile on, right? Like it's that movie Mask where Jim Carrey, so we do that. We do that all the time. It's like even from interacting with one child to the other, you feel like you have to immediately, you're stern and strict with one, and you literally in the next second move into another conversation with your second child, and you have a smile. You have to put a smile on your face because you can't treat everybody the same. But I think that's how I would say success or failure. I think it's more of an introspect on our own self, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I think what I've really learned in the last few years, the biggest thing that has shifted for me is the idea of self-compassion. So we are always doing the best. So I've really stopped classifying things as successes and failures. And I think my current theme of life, or my thing for reflection and meditation, is making peace with an imperfect life. Right? And following with that is making peace with our imperfect selves.
Yeah.
It's so easy to when we talk in terms of failure, like that is a very loaded word. It's a really loaded word. So would I have done things differently? Many things, many
Oh yeah.
things.
Oh yeah.
um, and I think given the situation, with the knowledge and information and insight, that's what you do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Even to my kids, right? Like I like before used to say, oh, I would use the word, oh, you did this wrong, right? It's like because the awareness wasn't there. And now I always say, well, you could have done this differently, or you could have done this better this way. So it's the choice of words also, I find a lot of times kind of
Oh,
has a really deep impact. I'm saying the same thing. I'm saying exactly the same thing. It's just the words are different now, where I'm telling them, yeah, you know, maybe you should have tried this way, or think about how we can do this better next time, right?
Mhm.
And I think that it just, I, I guess it teaches them to be more kinder to themselves, because the choice of words is different, right?
Mhm.
And I think I have evolved a lot. I was very, very, very harsh on myself, but now I think I try differently. I always tell myself, okay, you know, I'll try to do this better next time, because we all do our best, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, here's the thing also, that being harsh, it takes a big toll, right? And again, basic academic, right? So when you look at the research on self-compassion and self-criticism, it's just on a motivation, you're much further than if you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so, and it's a practice. I don't even think it's you know, I always say, right, self development is not a project, it's a process. You know,
Yeah,
it's a
that's amazing.
process, it's a practice. So some days, yes, you know, we manage to be kind, and some days we have to keep trying. You know,
Yeah.
and with kids, like, you know, and and a lot of things you don't realize what you've done with your kids till they go away and come back, right? So my daughter said the other day that I never realized how accepting we were in a house of not doing things properly. You know, because I always told them, I don't care what you do, as long as you're in action and you're doing something and you're making mistakes, I'm really okay with mistakes, right?
Yeah.
What I don't like is people just giving up and saying, you know, forget it, I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't realize that how much that had impacted them till she said that, right? That it's not, everyone's not like that. That they're okay with with making mistakes, and then you just learn and you do better next time.
Exactly. It's like teaching your kid how to make your bed every morning. So I am like a psychotic person about the bed. I really am. Once the bed is made, nobody can sit on it. It's something that's come down in generations, I think. It's a little, so I would be like, no, you have to fix your bed. And they would turn around and tell me, well, you're gonna go and fix it again for me. I'm like, that's okay, it doesn't really matter. And I kid you not, my 10-year-old, when she fixes her bed now, it is to perfection. And she wasn't there at the beginning, right? But I was like, doesn't matter. And so I used to go and fix their bed, because it would give me anxiety if I would pass by the room. But I learned to stop myself, and I think that was a learning for me too, because then I learned to stop myself and say, no, it's okay, it's her space, she's done it her way. Once in a while I'll go back and tell her, okay, you know what, Sukena, maybe you can try this or that, whatever. And now her bed is pristine, which is amazing, which I feel like, oh, that's pretty good for, um, for a 10-year-old to have a, perfect bed. Um, but I think that teaches children a lot. That teaches them that you gradually grow and perfect yourself. And it's not something that you just wake up one morning and that's it. I'm good to go, right? So we have, like, there's all that learning that happens while you're raising kids. I tell my kids all the time, I think I just the other day I said, who I am today is because of you guys, because you guys have, all 5 of you have nurtured me into the person I am today, right? Um, yeah, yeah. So thank you so much. This was really, really nice. And we should do this again. Maybe
Yeah.
we should. Um, there's a lot more that I would like to know about you. And I know, given the time, right now, but let's reconnect again. Let's pick a topic. Let's dissect it. Talk about it. But thank you so much
I
for making time from your busy schedule.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we never got to talk about the books, but inshallah next time.
Oh yeah, we do. So no, let's have a quick word about that. So Marzia has published 3 books that I know of. So I quickly spoke about the Wind Beneath the Wings, and then there was the Parenting in the Age of Facebook was another one, and then recently, what's your third one? Because I haven't gotten my hands on them. on that one?
It's called Calling on the Merciful. And this is actually it. This is my project of love. Okay, this was a project that was started by my grandfather. So he had published this little. It was a little booklet with duas from Sahifa Kamila and Dua Kumail. And so just short extracts, and the purpose was again to make them accessible, because not all of us have time to read those duas on a regular basis, right? And 65 plus years, 70 years maybe, I'm not sure when he did it, but people still have it on their bedside.
Wow.
And because of what he did, and it was in English, it's part of my consciousness. Like I have imbibed those duas because they were so easy and accessible, right?
Yeah.
So my dad asked me to because he wanted to republish it. Obviously, it's out of date, the printing, the words, and all of that. So I said, sure, I would love to do it, but Baba, me, if I do it, it's going to become a whole project. Fine, go for it, do what you want. And so now it's a proper book. It's got 120 odd or 130 extracts. And so it was really a labor of love. Like, it was a tribute to my grandparents, and the amazing and meaningful, like relevant. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping. Like, if no one else, if just my kids use it, right?
Oh no.
When they're away from home.
I think your grandfather is very lucky to have somebody like you who's taken his work and brought it back to life and shared it with so many people. And like I briefly had a look at it yesterday, but I'm going to obviously take my time to go through it, and I'm sure that it would be one of the books that you want to hold on to for sure. For sure.
Yeah, that's the vision is that, like, I know I'm going to have it on my bedside, right, and next to my musalla, so that, like, you just dip into it, even like if you have a minute, you dip into it.
Yeah, exactly. You just open a page and that's your read for the day, right? Like something to think about, something to reflect on, something to learn from. So for sure, for sure. But I will link the books on Instagram when I post the video. So thank you so much for coming on, making time, and we must do this again. Thank you. Okay.
Inshallah, this was lovely. Thank you so much. Take care.
No problem. Anytime. Take care.
Okay, for that.